Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the nation. My name is Special Reporter Reed Cohen, and tonight we have a special broadcast to you following an essential question that had been raised in the nation and sparked controversy throughout. The question is, can a criminal ever truly repay his debt to society? This started in a book titled Down These Mean Streets, which is a memoir by Perry Thomas, who is a Latino of Puerto Rican and Cuban descent who grew up in El Barrio, aka the Spanish Harlem. It is a section of Harlem that has a large Puerto Rican population, and the book follows Perry as he goes through the first few decades of his life as he lives in poverty, joins in fights along with street games, faces racism, and suffers through a heroin addiction, gets involved with crime, and ends up in prison. Tonight we will follow this story throughout the essential question, can a criminal ever truly repay his debt to society? My name is Reed Cohen, and follow along with me as we unveil this question one layer at a time. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are with the fabulous and beautiful Pat Walker. Our first interview takes us over to teacher and parent Pat
Miss
Walker of East High School.
I have a question to ask you. Do you feel that criminals can ever truly repay their debt to society?
Well, I think it could go two ways. Yes and no. Yes, on like a minor crime. Like a bank robbery. What else? I think if you actually murdered somebody, whether it's a hit and run or you actually used a gun, I think the victim's family would probably say no. And if my own son would have been hurt or my husband, I would have felt no, the debt wasn't paid, because you could never bring that person back. But depending on the crime, if it was like a robbery, yes. If they've served their time, I think they've paid their debt.
All right, thank you, Miss Walker. My name is Reed Cohen, reporting live from CNN here in Denver, Colorado. We'll get back to you in just a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, that you just heard from the lovely Pat Walker herself and her approach to whether criminals can truly repay their debt to society. Now, on the other hand, we have another teacher, a male teacher by the name of Skip Walker, teaches over at South High School, who has a bit of a different approach to this question. Let's take you now and listen to the interview live with Skip Walker.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. From Denver, Colorado, I bring you another teacher over at South High School, Mr. Skip Walker. Hello, Skip.
Hello. How you doing, Reed?
Good, and yourself?
Very, very good. Very good.
All right. I have a question to ask you. This is regarding society and criminals. So my question is, can criminals ever truly repay their debt to society?
I think that's just a cliche. I don't think the debt is to the victim. It's not to society. As far as society goes, you're being punished. Just as if you didn't clean up your room, or you hit your little brother. It's a punishment. It's a consequence for an action that's outside the norm or the accepted behavior, and so you're just being punished. And so that punish is spelled out by law. 2 years in prison, 5 years in prison, life in prison. Those are just different punishments or consequences for your action. So as far as repaying some sort of debt, if you've committed a violent crime, you've made the society feel a little less safe. But as far as changing that, you're not going to change that. You just have to do your punishment.
All right, thank you, Skip. Live from Denver, Colorado. My name is Reed Cohen, and we'll head back to the studio here in just.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the studio. My name is Reed Cohen, and as always, we just heard from Skip Walker, a teacher over at South High School, whose opinion is that of a completely different sort. Now let's head to two children around the age of 15 who I've decided to interview, who will answer the same question, can criminals ever truly repay their debt to society? And we will see what sort of different approach these two young children have.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. With a little bit of a younger opinion here, I have Uri Walker, age 15, student of Denver East High School. He'll be giving us a little bit of a younger opinion on the following question. Uri, can criminals ever truly repay their debt to society?
Well, I don't think they ever do because they already cause tax stuff in the jail, and they're so I don't think they ever can, no matter what they do.
All right, thank you, Uri, bringing us a younger and more light-hearted opinion. My name is Reed Cohen from Denver, Colorado. We'll head back to you over in the studio.
Back in the studio here, we just heard from Uri Walker, whose approach to the following question, can criminals ever truly repay their debt to society? His answer was directed towards a more political and, in a sense, a light-hearted type of answer. Now let's head to a more serious response over at Denver East High School in the gymnasium.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am with the fabulous Morgan here over at a student at Denver East High School. Morgan, what is your race?
Black.
Morgan is a black child over here at East High School who's going to answer the following question for us. Morgan, do you believe that criminals can ever truly repay their debt to society?
No.
Do you have any further explanations?
Never repay the past and can never fix it.
Thank you, Morgan. All right, live from Denver East High School, my name is Reed Cohen, and we'll be back in the studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. That will wrap up our teacher and children interviews, but don't go anywhere, folks. We still have one more set of interviews from 2 adults here in the United States. If your opinion has not changed on the question, I suggest you stay tuned. If it has, feel free to stay tuned or go ahead and tune out. But next up, we have 2 adults with 2 different opinions.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're back here live in Stapleton, Colorado with the notorious Jake Crine here. So, Jake Crine, I have a question for you. Can criminals ever truly repay their debt to society?
I would have to say that would probably depend on what their crime was. If violent crimes and something against a person directly that impacts someone's life and changes it forever, I don't know if you'd ever be able to repay that crime to society. But lesser crimes, I mean, certainly you could. So there's shades of gray between there. So.
All right, thank you, Jake Crine, and we'll head back to you in the studio here in just a moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, that will wrap up our interview with Jake Crine, but stay seated. We do have one more interview before we let you decide for yourselves whether criminals have truly paid their debt to society. Our final interview is with mother and esteemed loved one, Michelle Wiley.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the new studio. I am here live with Michelle A. Wiley, also known as Shelly Wiley, who is an esteemed loved one of mine and is just a fabulous young lady. Now, Michelle, I'd like to ask you, do you believe that criminals can ever truly repay their debt to society?
Well, Reed, I think that depends on what the crime is. If the crime is murder and someone has been killed, then no, I don't think you can ever repay that debt to society because you've taken a life and that life will never be viable again. So no, I don't think that can ever happen. If it's in the case of maybe drugs or burglary, I do believe that people can be rehabilitated and can change their ways. And we've seen through articles in the paper how people will turn their lives around when they've been addicted to drugs, and then they become ministers or social workers or counselors where they can then help other people that have been in trouble. So I think it depends on what the crime is.
All right, thank you, Michelle A. Wiley. You are truly a magnificent woman. We'll head back to you in the studio. See you later, America.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude all of our reports here on our CNN special edition tonight. All of our interviews. But lastly, I'd just like to connect this back to the main point, which was, in the beginning, a connection to the book Down These Mean Streets. In this broadcast, I'd just like to say that, in my opinion, in order to give back to society, we must change ourselves first, and then change the world, one day at a time. A connection to Down These Mean Streets, Period accepted the consequences that society gave him for shooting a police officer, and by doing that, it changed him. So yes, From the book Down These Mean Streets, we have proven that Pierre Thomas has been able to redeem his debt to society. Good night, America. My name is Reed Cohen, signing off. See you later.